Hello and welcome to this very special episode of Shot by Shot with Oliver
and Joe,
where we are going to be commentating
on
over Tim Burton's classic superhero film, my personal pick for favourite film, Batman. Or I should have said that when the title came up, shouldn't I?
We're still on Michael Keaton.
We're always on Michael Keaton.
So I guess a good way of starting this is, do you want to explain quickly why this is your favourite film in a few sentences?
Probably more of a paragraph. This film pretty much got me into filmmaking in general. Because I think I watched a lot of films when I was younger. Always enjoyed going to see movies, a bit of entertainment. Who doesn't like it? And I always liked this film. I saw this after Batman Begins came out, which was the film that kind of got me into Batman. But it wasn't until I came to university doing computer science rather than film, and I was at quite a low state in my life, and watching films in the evening suddenly became quite an escape for me, because suddenly I had a free reign of what I was watching. It wasn't necessarily watching it with the family, it was just whatever I found on the shelves. And I revisited this, and it kind of... There was a strange element of me living in the city and feeling isolated that mirrored, obviously, the whole sort of Gotham City and Bruce Wayne. But also just the craftsmanship behind this film stood out to me so much more than it had before. And it seemed to touch upon my imagination much more than it ever had. And all of a sudden I just found myself intrigued with the production history, learning about how this film had been made. And before I knew it, that kind of encouraged my general love in filmmaking, in sort of learning how these things are made. So I think that more or less sums it up. I mean, it's a very personal film for me. There's a lot of elements.
If you're listening, you've just heard the preface of Oliver Luddy's autobiography.
Yeah, before it's released. Many years before it's released.
That was very, very insightful.
We will be talking about all of the filmmakers that we've just seen credited, but in due course.
Yeah, we've missed the opening credits, and I had a fun fact. Have you heard the score for Bernard Herrmann's Journey to the Centre of the Earth?
Yes, that was the influence.
I was amazed when I listened to it, because they're both so similar. That's so cool.
Well, Bernard Herrmann is a massive influence for Danny Elfman in general.
Do you know what else he did?
Bernard Herrmann?
Yeah.
He did a whole bunch of Alfred Hitchcock's movies. I'm pretty sure he did
Psycho.
Psycho.
Of course he did, yeah.
So that pairing of Danny Elfman and Tim Burton was kind of the mirror for, Bernard Herrmann and Alfred Hitchcock.
Yeah, absolutely.
But funny enough, something I learned, I recently went to a 30th anniversary screening of this in London, and a few anecdotes that hadn't been told before were told there by some of the crew. And apparently before Danny Elfman had come out with the score, the sound designers basically put a scratch track of rough music on top. I think it was, what was it? Theme of the Common Man, Fanfare of the Common Man by something Conway. But a lot of stock music was put onto the film, and the Warner executives were fine with it. They were like, "You can release it like this." Yeah. Anyway, we're
now being thrown into
events.
the Gotham City of Batman.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, what do you think of this incarnation of Gotham City?
I love this version. I think this is probably I don't know if I'd say my favourite, but yeah, I just think everything is fantastic about it. I think my favourite thing about it is the way that it mixes all like the eras up, the fact that it could be from literally any decade, and there's a mixture between all the kind of shadowy 40s noir stuff, and yet there's so many like signs of like consumerism and like big billboards and like junk food everywhere, things like that.
Well, that's the whole... I mean, a lot of people say this film isn't necessarily about something, which to me is part of why I like it, because it's very much a film that you can interpret for yourself. But
there's a lot there if you want to access it though. So I wouldn't necessarily agree with that.
Yeah. I mean, I'll go on to that a bit in a moment.
Even though the we'll probably talk about this later, but even the Joker's like central plot, the whole people wearing makeup and the cosmetics things, and the fact that that poisons people.
Yeah,
there's
exactly.
something there to do with like the consumerist culture of Gotham, and the way they allow themselves to be kind of influenced and controlled by these eccentric heroes and villains.
Yeah, I mean, that was what I was going to say. One of my frequent, because I find whenever I watch this, I tend to come up with different readings for it.
Yeah.
But one that I frequently have is that idea of like the past and the future and how these different elements are informing the present. You know, Batman and the Joker as these figures of the dark past and this sort of strange, demented future. It's very much a sort of consequence of Tim Burton's vision, because I think this comes from him being an animator, but he's very much someone who can recognize the quality of certain images and put them on screen and trust the audience to glean their own interpretation from them.
Absolutely.
So, you know, he's talked about how much the images of Batman and the Joker interest him, of a bat and a clown, and what those images represent. And like I say, you know, that comes from an animator being able to look at something and recognize its qualities and sort of understand how, you know, that shot that just came up with from Batman's face,
the close-up of him.
Yeah, it's from the chemical plant.
Of course.
It's like, it's like B-roll. Sorry, I we're talking so much about the film in general that we're not talking enough about this great intro. I'm sure I'll come back to what I was just saying.
He's just had the iconic "I'm Batman."
Yeah, which was,
or as producer John Peters would like, "I'm Batman, motherfucker."
As he claims was in the script, which was never in the script.
He was supposed to say, "I'm Batman, motherfucker."
Psycho producer John Peters. Yeah, "I'm Batman" was improvised by Michael Keaton.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah,
was that a thing before this film?
No,
that wasn't one of his
catchphrases. The line in the script was, "Tell your friends I am the night," or "I own the night," or something along those lines. He had a much longer line of dialogue, and apparently Michael Keaton said, "Can I just say something much more succinct?" Because he's always, in this film and Batman Returns, been adamant that Batman shouldn't have much dialogue. Especially in Batman.
Oh, brilliant shout from him.
Yeah, in Batman Returns, he was scripted as having so much dialogue, and he cut down the vast majority of it.
This is one of the things I just want to say briefly. I think obviously there's a lot of comparisons you can make with the actually more.
You can tell how much is in this film.
There's
by
too
how
much to speak about. Here's Jack Nicholson. This is also Jack Nicholson's Joker incarnation. He has one of my favourite opening lines for a character when he's the mayor's doing his speech about make this a city safe for decent people, and he just says, "Decent people shouldn't live here.
They'd be happier someplace else."
I just think it's such a great opening line. It tells you so much about his character. It almost tells you everything you need to know, like his callousness.
This whole scene does.
His way with words.
Every action in this scene, the fact that he's got his feet up on the Vogue magazine or whatever it was just then, that portrait of that woman, and him sort of brushing her hair out of his face, and, you know, studying himself in the mirror, and the decor of his apartment with those black and white portraits with just the lips highlighted.
Well, this is the thing. Like, you said at the beginning, what makes you love this film so much? I think particularly after you've told me how much you loved it, I've watched it a couple more times in my adult life. And the one thing I think is this film absolutely doesn't get enough credit for how well it handles character. I think it's always people say it's a great exercise in visual style, in world building, interesting interpretations of classic characters. But just on the level of the actors playing with each other and making interesting choices, there's so much great stuff in here.
Yeah.
Particularly with the three main actors and our good friend Robert Wall.
Yes.
Who is about to show up now.
I mean, this is William Hootkins.
Oh yeah, this is
as the infamous
Lieutenant.
Giant supernatural form, kind of like a bat. Fantastic.
Do you think have you seen Touch of Evil?
Yeah,
he
yeah,
definitely
yeah,
has
definitely.
Orson Welles vibes.
Oh, yeah.
In Touch of Evil. Oh Christ, Knox.
And Knox, this is because there are a lot of elements of this film that crossed over into general Batman mythos. Not that it's something that I want to touch on too much, because I'm not really the biggest Batman comic nerd, but it's always surprised me that Knox didn't carry across to anything else, because he's such a charismatic figure and really one of the most enjoyable characters in the film. Some of the most entertaining characters.
Yeah, he's fantastic. He so easily could have been like the annoying comic relief, but he's actually he's genuinely funny and genuinely sort of witty. But isn't he like wasn't he meant to die in the original script? But was it because they liked his performance?
Yes,
they made him
he was going to die in the climax during the parade scene, and they also shot a scene where Batman dumps his all of his like armor and his cape onto him as like a decoy for getting away out of the cathedral.
Oh right.
And the police find him on the cathedral steps, and they're like, "Let's see who Batman really is," and it's Knox. And he's like, "Will I make the front page or something like that?" And they cut it.
That would have been quite goofy.
yeah, very goofy. But he's that enjoyable of a character.
But it's rare for sort of studios or producers to do that when an actor brings something so different to a role. Another example I can give is big spoilers for Jaws. If you haven't seen Jaws, what are you doing with your life? But Richard Dreyfuss, his character dies in the novel. His character was always meant to die, and he was meant to be like a dick because he's like the privileged sort of upper class scientist, but then they made him live because they just were like, Richard Dreyfuss is so damn likable, it wouldn't feel right in the end.
Well, I mean, saying all of this, Knox was scripted in an early script of Batman Returns. He was going to be crucified on the bat signal at some stage.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I mean, Daniel Waters, who wrote some of the early drafts for Batman Returns, was told specifically by Tim Burton, make sure it is severed from the first Batman film. We want this to be a completely different film. And so he put in a lot of touches that contradict or more challenge the original film. So like the dig at Vicky Vale that's in the final film.
Yeah.
And one of them was going to be Knox being crucified on the bat signal during the sort of big turn against Batman.
I would have hated that.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm glad it's not in the film. For the previous scene, I really love that laugh by Jack Nicholson, that little sort of chuckle that he has to himself.
Yeah,
it's very foreboding.
It's fantastic. Yeah, it's almost a shame that there have been like, Heath Ledger's Joker cast such a kind of shadow over what is still such a great performance. But I genuinely can't decide between this version, the Dark Knight version, and the version in Batman Mask of the Phantasm. I just think that all three of them are just such brilliant versions of the characters, so different.
The Joker hasn't been...
That's Bob Kane's signature.
Yeah, it is, yeah. Very well noticed. Yeah, I like also that Knox is kind of downtrodden as well. Like he has this sort of crush on the girl and never quite gets there, and has the big story that he wants to show to the world.
Yes, he said that in the interview as well. He's like, he's the guy you want to root for. He's the only one who believes that Batman is out there, and like the ambitious, like you said, downtrodden guy.
It's interesting because I've read stuff where, obviously, because of this film taking a 40s noir approach, people have criticised Vicky Vale, saying maybe she should have been sort of the femme fatale of the piece. But in a way, she really works as sort of the light in Gotham City in this film. I think as a character, she isn't given enough to do in the latter half of the film. Pretty much everything from the museum on.
I was going to say, I have very few criticisms with the film, but one of them is I think her character starts great. I think she's great in these. Yeah. In this,
very inquisitive.
Very sort of active and witty and smart and ambitious. And then when it gets into the second half, after kind of Joker gets his crush on her, she's reduced a bit to screaming and being sort of dragged around by Batman, which is a shame. Like,
I actually think the screaming does a lot to make it worse, if that makes sense. Like, I think if she didn't scream as much, it wouldn't have been...
She screams all the time. And this is actually my other criticism of the film.
This is where
Yeah,
this
we
is our
disagree.
big debate on this. I love Jack Palance in this. I think he hams it up
And
perfectly.
I think Jack Palance is bad. Because Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson and other actors in this and Batman Returns are kind of hamming it up. But they do it in a way that feels like
They give it
grounded
levity.
in their
Yeah.
own skin.
Yeah.
Whereas Jack Palance, he looks like his head is one place and his body is in another. Like it's just
He's the only guy who could be the boss of Jack Napier.
there's
nice
loads of-
little detail. The hole that is burnt into that playing card, Jack is shot in the same cheek in the chemical plant. It's something I never connected. So when he gets
That's
the
cool.
bullet ricochets and hits him in the face in the chemical plant, it's in the same cheek as on that playing card where it's got the little cigarette burn.
Yeah. No, Jack Palance works to an extent. I mean, I need to see that film City Slickers, which he won an Oscar for 2 years later.
He played Dracula once, didn't he? In the 70s.
Oh, I don't know. I know he's in Shane, and I know he's in that film City Slickers, but I haven't seen him in anything else other than this. But I don't know. It's just it's not really my thing.
I don't think he's enough.
Maybe it's because he's always acting with Jack Nicholson, and
Yeah.
Jack Nicholson just needs to look at someone, and it's like, this
It's-
is the best
yeah,
performance in the
yeah,
world.
yeah. How do you feel? A criticism from a lot of comic fans is that this film shows a bit too much of who the Joker was before he was the Joker. How do you feel about Jack Napier?
One of my favourite things about this film is that you know more about the Joker than you do about Batman.
Yeah.
I think it's so much
It
cooler.
shows the contrast between them as characters, doesn't it?
Yeah.
One is look at me. The other is hidden away. Almost begrudgingly hidden away, which is again something that Tim Burton's said.
One
about.
thing I just realised, a lovely thing about this film is you almost... what you know about Batman is almost entirely filtered through Vicky Vale.
Yeah.
You get the odd scene of him and
view of
Alfred.
the audience. Yeah.
Yeah.
She is very much filtered through her, which is why it's a shame that she's not more effective in the second half, because she absolutely is. And you don't even really realise it. Well, I mean, you've just realised it. As a kid, I never really realised that. But she really is. And that sort of emphasis upon her being a photographer as well has an weird connection to sort of filmmaking. There's something later on which I'll comment, which it's crazy to me that it eludes so many people, but I'll touch on it later.
Well, this is the thing. How long have we been talking about? 10 or 15 minutes, and we haven't
bouncing
seen
away.
Michael Keaton.
Yeah,
we've seen Batman.
He shows up, I think, 20 minutes into it. I love Michael Gough as Alfred.
Yeah, he's
There's a-
absolutely fantastic.
There's a real tender side to him, isn't there? It's interesting because he's so straight-faced, and yet there's a tenderness to his performance where you can understand that he sort of would have cared for this rather strange, secluded man.
Absolutely.
And
He treats him more than any of the other Batman, more than any of the other Alfreds I've seen.
Yeah.
He treats him a bit more like a child, which I think is really fun.
Yeah. And these guys,
Here's
their
Michael.
chemistry is really good.
Yeah.
I think what I've said to you before is I do think that they needed one more scene to really cement the relationship between Bruce and Vicky.
It is quite rushed.
It does rush through it quite a bit, and it's never really fully made clear what she gets from the relationship, if that makes sense. It's very made clear that she is the light that sort of brings... She brings light to his sort of dark lifestyle and is this gleam of hope for him. But other than him being sort of an intriguing figure that she wants to find out more about, it's not really made clear what is in it for her from a relationship standpoint.
Yeah, because essentially the in the second third of the film, she's essentially stalking him. She's completely going off piece from the Batman story because all she wants to do is find out who Bruce Wayne is.
Yeah.
And I think they could have dwelled slightly on what about him makes her so fascinated or infatuated even with him.
Yeah.
But the moments that you do see with them are really lovely.
Yeah, I love the dinner scene, which we'll see coming up their first date.
But that's the thing. I think if you pick it apart, there are a lot of kind of plot holes or things that don't quite make sense with this film. But going back to what I was saying about the character earlier, it always works for me because it's a film where based on what the actors bring to it, the little gestures, the little mannerisms, I believe that all these characters have a life outside of what we're seeing, and that's kind of the secret to any good film, basically.
Oh yeah. I also think I'm so glad that Kim Basinger is in this, because I think her performance is great, and knowing that Sean Young was very, very close to being Vicky Vale.
I can't see that happening.
No, that's the thing. I'm not a big fan of Sean Young as a performer.
What else is she in other than Blade Runner?
I mean, that's the thing. It's like, I remember her from Ace Ventura. I don't know. She's never, and she's known for being very sort of problematic on set.
Oh really?
Yeah. I mean, the only reason why she wasn't Vicky Vale was because she injured herself in a horse riding accident right before they filmed it, and they had to get Kim Basinger like a week before they started filming.
Oh, that's impressive as well, considering how long actors usually have to prepare for films like this.
I mean, she was originally considered, and then she was too busy, but she was on the plane in a flash, and before she knew it, she was on the film. And considering her performance, I'm glad.
I love this scene where they meet him properly.
Such a great... And you show this film to people who haven't seen it, and, you know, we showed it to a friend, I remember, and she was like, oh, he's Bruce Wayne? Like, because there's nothing to, you know, he's so sort of obscure and so unassuming that it's like, oh, it's this guy. Like,
can we talk about Michael Keaton's casting?
Yeah.
Because obviously it was kind of the big fan backlash at the time. I think they received over 50,000 letters of complaint for Michael Keaton's casting.
Such a controversial
choice. So if Twitter had existed back then, it would have been insane.
It's insane to think that there was that level of response back in an age where it would have all been by mail. And looking back, it's like there was no reason to be angry about it. It's easily my favourite Bruce Wayne Batman performance.
I think
one of my favourite comic book
me and my brother, actually, we made one of our lists, which I know you love. We were trying to make together our list of 10 favourite comic book performances, and I think I'm pretty sure Michael Keaton came out as number one. I just think it's such a brilliant bit of casting, and what really I just thought was so lovely when I watched the interviews in preparation for this commentary was Tim Burton saying there was such a big thing at the time with like the Stallones, the Schwarzeneggers.
Oh, he was going through so many big guys.
So many guys, because, you know, comic book fans were saying like Batman, he's like 6'2",
Mel Gibson sort of thing.
Huge figure. And then Tim Burton was just like, but I didn't believe that any of them psychologically would dress up as a bat. And as Michael Keaton,
he would need to do that to
But I think it's such
people.
a wonderful example to set, considering that Hollywood has all these kind of disgusting rules and problems with casting in which like women are not cast in roles for not being pretty enough and all these horrible sort of prejudices. And for Tim Burton to make for the whole team to make a brave casting choice based entirely upon what the actor brings to the part psychologically. So many people could learn from this decision, and it worked brilliantly because you believe him. Like he's like we're watching him now, looking at all the screens from his Batcave, and he's just believably unhinged.
He sells the turmoil in every look, doesn't he? He's really powerful. It's like he says, he doesn't need those words to sort of sell his performance.
That's a really fun fact, going back to what you said about how he kind of tried to reduce the dialogue. Considering how many actors you'd think are like me, I want as much dialogue as possible.
He played around with a fair few things. I think in this scene they were going to have him going into a trance to become Batman. It was almost like another in excess. They cut it out. I don't know if they filmed it. I'm assuming they must have done.
Maybe it's one of those things that kind of worked in theory, and then when they filmed
they tried it out, and it was his suggestion. I know that, but so he clearly had a lot of ideas about the character. Even if it wasn't like a franchise that he was like enamored with, which I think speaks to the strengths of a lot of these Batman characters. Is that even if you're not a fan of the sort of comic book aesthetic or setup, there's so much psychology there to sort of dig into.
And there's such a rich history with these characters. Because Jack Nicholson talked in interviews about how even though his performance in this is hammy. He took it incredibly seriously.
Yeah.
Because he knew what was at stake in terms of putting these characters onto the screen.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So we were at the Access Chemicals shootout.
Chemicals.
Isn't this where they shot Aliens?
Yes, they got there and the set was still up for Aliens.
Oh,
because
wow.
it's an abandoned Acton Lane power station in London, which unfortunately has been demolished since. But they got there, all of the set decoration for Aliens was still up. So they had
That
to
looks those chemicals on the barrel looks like it's from Aliens.
Yeah,
It's
they
all
just
slimy.
resprayed it.
Yeah.
I really love this set. I love this whole sequence. In fact, I remember when I watched this as a kid, this sequence kind of convinced me that the film was older than it actually was. I thought I was watching something from like the 60s or something.
Well, yeah. Again, it's the guns
it's
they
a
shoot
lot
as
of the
well. They
effects,
all have
yeah.
like the I don't know
Sort
what
of
period they're from.
sparks
Like
and-
the
they're 40s sort of
yeah.
revolvers and things.
Having said that, this is a fun fact. Apart from Bob, who has like a modern Colt gun, if you
Yeah.
look at the
Oh, right,
yeah,
okay.
he has like
Yeah.
a gun that was contemporary for the time. Whereas if you see them, they're all thin barrel pistols.
Yeah.
Um,
I can't remember the year. So much of it was cited from like a specific year in the 1940s, and then they sprinkled it with sort of 80s touches as well to give it that weird timeless feel. Also, good time to say it, this was not only the first time that Batman was depicted in a completely black getup, which is now quite common, but also his first use of the grapple gun. He never used it in the comics before this.
oh really?
Yeah.
Not even to like swing between buildings and
Yeah.
stuff.
This was the first one to come up with the grapple gun, and then it was used in everything since.
Wow. It's pretty pioneering.
Mm.
I know this was... They took inspiration from a lot of like the darker comics in the 80s. Do you know
Yeah.
what it was specifically? Because obviously you'd had Alan Moore,
the
Killing Joke,
and
then
the
you'd had
Dark Knight
Frank Miller.
Rises,
Yeah.
Returns.
Wasn't there Red Hood as well?
A bit of that, yeah. I mean, this origin is very much Red Hood. I mean, that's from Killing Joke partially, but yeah, I know that was always the biggest influence for Tim Burton because he said the Killing Joke was the one comic that he's always loved. Because it was so cinematic, and it is a wonderful book to
That
look at.
has just one of the best endings as
Oh
well.
yeah, I love the climax of that. You got to feel bad for Michael Keaton in that suit as well because I can't remember how much it weighed, but it was thick rubber. Bear in mind, this is the first time you see rubber superhero costumes all the time now. So this is the first time they used something like this. It weighed a ton. He couldn't hear anything because it was covering his ears.
Yeah.
When it got cold, he was freezing. When it got hot, he was absolutely roasting. He couldn't turn his head. Just the most restricting.
Well, that feels like almost an joke
well,
in Batman Begins.
Yeah.
When,
you want to turn your head. Yeah. Isn't it the Dark Knight? It's because he changes the suit in the Dark Knight and he says you want to turn your head.
Yes, it is the Dark Knight. That's right. Yeah, wait. I'm gonna check out Bob's gun. Nice outfit.
And the black eye makeup's such a good idea as well.
Yeah. But again, I wouldn't have believed a Stallone or a Seagull doing that. Whereas Michael Keaton, I can imagine him.
Yeah.
Got to put on my black eye makeup because it looks.
Well, it magically
looks
disappears
scary.
in Returns, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you can see it, can you? Yeah.
I think we got to be silent for the bit where he
Think
shoots
about
Eckhart.
the future.
I love that he's looking.
He just walks
and then
away.
he walks away.
Yeah. He's so. Oh my god, that look of hopelessness.
It's like not caring.
Yeah,
as well.
yeah.
Oh, it's fab.
I never understood what happened here when I was a kid. Actually, I never understood that. I say when I was a kid, I was like 12 when I first watched this. I didn't know. I didn't know the bullet bounced, like ricocheted and hit him in the face. I thought it's like it hit the machine and chemicals sprayed out onto him. I didn't.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Oh, does it go like through his?
Yeah. It's like
Oh.
pierced his cheeks.
Ugh.
That's why he has most of the surgery done on his mouth. Because the chemicals kind of bleach his skin and then...
Yeah.
Shall I tell the untold anecdote about Jack Nicholson?
Yes,
Following these shots of him trying to turn his head and turning his whole body. I love this. turn the body, and then
It's like, oh.
yeah, turn the body around, turn around.
I do love that he throws the smoke bomb now.
Yeah.
And then he uses it to like fly away, but we
The
can
weird-
see him through
yeah.
the smoke.
With the weird noise that you hear as well.
Yeah.
It's very otherworldly.
What's the Jack Nicholson?
So this was told for the first time by one of the assistant producers at this 30th anniversary panel I went to. So everyone on Batman was working 6 days a week, and pretty full days at that, because they were really trying to crank through it. But at one point, Jack Nicholson calls the assistant manager into his trailer and says, "Can I have a word with you for a moment?" And he says, "This contract says 6 days a week." And then he says, "Yeah, we're all working 6 days a week on this." Or he had just gotten his call sheet in for Saturday. He was like, "Why am I coming in on Saturday?" It's like, "We're all working 6 days." And he says, "I don't work 6 days." And then he's like, "Okay, well, yeah, but it's in the contract. It's contractual. The contract's wrong." So the assistant manager, the assistant producer, goes to Warner Brothers, or writes to Warner Brothers in Los Angeles, because all this is shot in England, saying, "Jack's contesting his contract. Can we fix this at all?" And they come back and say on Monday, saying, Jack Nicholson's contract has been remedied. He's going to be working 5 days a week, and that can be Tuesday to Saturday or Monday to Friday. We will also be granting him use of a jet airliner. So on his days off, he was jetting all around Europe, whilst everyone else is slogging away on Batman. And interestingly enough, he was visiting Roman Polanski at the time, his pal Roman Polanski in Paris.
We don't like him.
No, we don't. But yeah, funny anecdote that hadn't been told ever.
The contract's wrong.
It's the contract's wrong.
So
Dream
sassy.
sequence exclusive.
This scene, I think we both
Amazing.
find
Yeah.
both hilarious and wonderful.
Love
where they're both sat for their first date, Vicky and Bruce.
A little touch.
really long table.
Yeah, a little touch that we missed is when Michael Keaton goes up the other end to drop the salt off. He taps the table in a sort of there you go sort of motion. Yeah. It's just a wonderful little touch that he added just to
Also, this sums up why I love him in this. In that that moment where he says, "The truth is, I don't think I've ever been in this room before," and then she laughs a lot, and then he kind of smiles as if he's surprised that she's laughing, and it's it's just he so kind of seems unaware of certain social cues, and others he's quite confident in.
She's sort of bringing him about on how ridiculous it is.
Yes,
and he's acknowledging it.
And Alfred's kind of in on it with her.
Yeah,
and he's like, "Isn't he funny? Isn't he weird?"
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's Tim Burton said that a lot of these scenes are his favourites, and I would agree, because it's kind of...
That's the thing, older Tim Burton in his heyday.
Oh, God.
Again, we think of him as a visual stylist, someone who builds worlds, who really has an eye for art decoration. He
Such
absolutely
well.
is a great storyteller, and he can clearly work with actors as well.
Yeah. Up until Planet of the Apes, we'll say that's the turning point.
Yeah,
not a bad film.
I mean, I even know I think one of his great underrated films is Sleepy Hollow.
Yeah.
Right up until that point where he did. Because I think to be fair though, I think Planet of the Apes is the only air quote bad film I've seen him do. I haven't seen really anything past that point. I haven't seen it.
Oh right. Okay.
I mean, the Planet of the Apes is really, really not good.
Big Fish and Charlie and the Chocolate... Well, Big Fish is genuinely great.
I'm
a fan of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, but I know that's
wrong,
controversial.
Sir. Wrong.
Yeah.
But you like that more than the 70s one?
Yeah. Come at me.
The surgery scene where Jack Nicholson's getting his face fixed.
This was shot in a prop room on Pinewood Studios, so they just needed to shoot this scene. They found a basement storage room for props and just shot it in there.
This scene really creeped me out as a kid.
Yeah. Well,
but then it
builds
also led
suspense,
to
doesn't it?
one of the Simpsons.
Yeah, The
best
Simpsons.
ever
Yeah, I saw
film
that parody before I even saw this film.
Mirror.
Mirror.
I also love that dentist character in The Simpsons.
Yeah.
The bit where he goes, he's like, "You'll wake up and you'll be good as new. Hold still while I gas you."
Would you prefer him instead of this guy?
See what I have to work with here.
The nerves were completely severed.
It's so brilliant. The way this scene is lit is so fantastic as well. And look, you've got the red flashing light in the background as well. That was a thing I noticed earlier. That the Access Chemicals, it's like a chemical plant, and the sign looks so much like
neon,
like a weird neon billboard.
Yeah.
It's like everything is kind of like, look how flashy everything. Look how cool Gotham is, even for like a chemical plant.
Yeah. What do you think is the best Joker laugh in this film?
The best one he does.
Yeah.
Probably the one we just saw, because that
really?
one really creeped me out.
Yeah. I think the one when he says, "I'm glad you're dead," that really loud laugh that he lets out after burning that guy. Something I've always debated whether they actually have sex here. Not to be too on the nose about it, but they're just like in bed, like
Oliver, let's keep this clean.
No, if we're going into their like romance.
No, they definitely have sex. Look at
They're
them.
just like lying in bed fully clothed.
You would,
both
wouldn't
of them.
you, if you were there with Michael?
You wouldn't take off your clothes if you were with
I
Michael.
mean, Kim. No, I don't know, but both of them, they're sexy. This is Jack
they both have very
Palance's,
kissable lips.
his big suit.
Got your sugar bomb.
When he says you won't be worth spit,
Yeah.
that's just him shouting.
Do you think Tim
This
Burton
scene's
was
brilliantly
off?
lit as
Do you
well.
think
I
Tim
love his
Burton was
silhouette.
off screen then when he says you won't be worth spit?
Yeah,
You'd
John
actually
Peters was taking the sessions that day.
Oh my God, you're alive! I love it. Maybe because he's not in the film that much, I don't find it that bad. Do you know about?
I think it's testament to the other performances. Weirdly, that for me he stands out as kind of at like. I don't want to say like looking down on the material, but it's like he doesn't seem completely in it.
Yeah.
He seems like he's kind of showing up for the work.
He just seems like a like gangster character to me.
I just love the fact that Jack Nicholson in this scene is completely in darkness, but you kind of see his white face.
Yeah.
It's so cleverly done.
It's like this sort of weird skull-like sort of thing.
What's the film from the 20s that the Joker was originally inspired
The Man Who
by?
Laughs.
The Man Who Laughs. I want to see that.
Yeah. Do you want to see a makeup gaff here?
Yes.
Something that annoys Nick Dudman, who did the Joker's makeup. This annoys him to no end. This bit, you can see there's purple on his neck. Can you see that?
Oh, yes.
Because I think the face paint that is used took off the colour from Jack Nicholson's clothing. So when it's been on his neck, it's rubbed off onto his neck.
Oh my
The colouring from the jacket, and it annoys Nick Dudman to no end. The first shot of the Joker.
I can't believe you noticed that.
No, to be honest, I was told that.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Oh, there's some funny details.
What do you think of the special effects in this? Because obviously this year, I imagine... Look, they're like both fully clothed.
Her hair's like messy. No, his hair's over. That's a bit of a Jeff Goldblum shot from him. It's like the
like Gina Davis, Jeff Goldblum.
No, they had sex. They totally had sex.
They're just snuggling.
Comment below if you think Michael and Kim.
Yeah, let's have a vote.
No, not the actors. But Bruce and Vicky had sex.
We'll put a poll on the Dream Sequence Facebook page. Do you think Vicky Vale and... I mean, she says, I even slept with you. I can't believe that I did that later.
Oh, well, that means sex.
Does it, though?
Yes.
Or they slept together?
Yeah,
They slept together, or did they sleep together?
No, I made that
Also, this always annoys me where people think he's asleep here. Like, sleeping like a bat. When that's
he's
clearly...
working out.
They even, like, put, like, dumbbells in the background to make it clear that he's, like, exercising. And people are like, oh, why does he sleep like a bat? Like, upside down.
What was your original question?
What was I asking? Oh yeah, the special effects. ILM. like visual effects, because ILM, who do the vast majority of sort of big blockbuster special effects, were very busy this year. They were doing Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, Ghostbusters 2, Back to the Future Part 2, I believe.
Yeah, they were
Part 3. And a few other films, so they weren't... And also because this was being shot in England, they used mostly English visual effects houses, including... I think it was John Evans was a special effects artist behind Thunderbirds, so a lot of the Batwing sequences use very, very similar effects to the Thunderbirds television show. But yeah, they're not up to... A lot of the effects in this film aren't up to the sort of standard of other releases at the time. Like Return of the Jedi as well, I think. Oh no, that was way earlier, but
yeah,
that sort of standard.
I've never really thought about it, to be honest. Like, I don't think it's a film I watch for like.
No,
weirdly, I don't watch it for like the action sequences.
Yeah,
yeah. I think it's the world and it's the characters that. That's kind of what I like about it the most. I never, I never ever watched this even as a kid, being like, oh, I want to watch the fight scenes.
Yeah,
I think it was the watching the characters interact with each other. I love it when Alfred
Smiley
dobs him in it.
Unaware.
Out, Miss Vale? I'm gonna be here quite a while.
Come on, he's got to be like pretty aware of keeping the secret by now.
Yeah,
surely.
of course.
Which we'll get onto later, the whole Batcave thing, which is another thing I contest as to other people's opinions.
Oh yes, no, I was going to ask about this, but we'll get to that later. I'm
Apparently, sure. What was her name? The actress who plays Alicia. Jerry Hall was very good at fainting. She fell down very, very well, apparently, according to Tim Burton. Who said that? I think it was Tim Burton.
Yeah, she
fell
really was good at falling.
Well, you like fainting is a... Why is Alfred? I never got why.
It's the guy on
he
the
looks
far
like
left.
Einstein.
No, he's the guy in the Last Crusade as well, isn't he? The one who's doing like the stamping.
Yes, it is.
He thinks the stamp
Never
is making
realised
the
that.
massive
Yeah,
bang.
yeah.
Yeah.
Fun anecdote here when he says Anton got hot under the collar. Anton first, who did the production design here and for this film and got an Academy Award for it.
Yeah.
Was doing something this when the day they were shooting this scene, and was getting very frustrated about it. I can't remember what it was. It was something to do with this apartment set. And Jack Nicholson included the Anton got very hot under the collar line as a nod to Anton first. Because he was...
Jack's so cheeky.
Well, something they say is that... I really like this effect as well, actually. It looks kind of corny, but I like the sort of glowing face thing. And the
there's a sort of
well.
cartoony aspect,
Yeah.
which I think actually really works with the Joker. Like I love the Heath Ledger's ultra kind of grounded. Like, what would he be like in the real world?
Yeah.
But there's an element to the Joker in this and Mask of the Phantasm where I love how kind of physical their performances are, and like it does feel like they're almost doing like their own one-man show, but there's just like other people in the world around them.
This effect's interesting because as a kid I thought he had white makeup on the handkerchief and he wiped it on his face. But actually what they did was they applied the Joker makeup, the standard white Joker makeup, and then put a layer of, I think, cooking oil or something over the top, and then flesh-coloured makeup.
Oh, wow.
So that he could wipe off the flesh-coloured makeup without wiping off the white colour underneath. So what you see there is...
taken ages.
Yeah, it was a real difficult one to pull off. But yeah, sorry, Jack Nicholson was famous. I love this coming up. The number one guy. It's his personal jab at Jack Palance.
Yes,
surely.
that's what I think. I think he is. I think he's taking the piss out of him.
But apparently this was so hard to cut together, this film, because Jack would improvise every single take. Yeah, every take would be different. So piecing together his performance was a real challenge.
They did a great job.
I love it. I haven't said before, but I love the smile makeup on this. I think it's perfect.
Yeah, because it looks really fucked up as well. Like the dents is really weird.
The sort of laugh lines. And I love, contrary to like cartoonish special effect, I love how just charred and fucked up that. Like where the skin's like stretching sinister. Down the neck and everything. It's very morbid. That's why I don't quite get how people say this is like sort of campy compared to the Dark Knight and all of that, because I think there's
it's
there's
totally different, but it's equally as sinister. Like 'cause I know there have been a couple of critics who are like that. Yeah, that there isn't actually
that laugh there. Sorry, is my favorite.
But there are a lot of critics who like there isn't sort of real darkness in this one. There isn't real psychological darkness. Like I completely disagree. I mean, like what other comic book film recently would you have the villain like talking to literally like a charred corpse?
That's
just
the
on
thing.
his own?
Yeah,
It's like brave choices.
It's sort of well, it's a bit like someone described the second film, Batman Returns, as a nightmare that tastes like candy. And that's one of those moments that I describe in that way. You know, it's so entertaining, and yet you're laughing at death.
That's a brilliant way of putting it.
Yeah.
Don't get personal.
He just wants to do his job.
Yeah, this is the period of the film where she starts stalking him.
And amazingly, I haven't visited either of the locations that they've used for Wayne Manor in this. They used Nebworth Castle for the exteriors, that there, and Hatfield House, which was recently used for the interiors for
The Favourite. Yeah.
So I believe Queen Anne's bedroom is actually the sort of study that you see Bruce Wayne in a few scenes' time.
I really I'm probably saying this for about every single scene. I really love this scene, but when she's following him and he puts the rose by his where his parents died, I just think it's such a nice change of pace from the rest of the film.
It's wonderful. And also,
it almost looks like it could be like its own short silent film, like following this man, seeing where he goes, and this is the kind of the clue she gets from him.
And that wide shot of it makes it seem so pathetic, and like, as in the setting, you know, it doesn't seem like
so
somewhere,
insignificant.
And then when he takes his shades off in a moment, he's so clearly uncomfortable to be there. Like you can't tell if there's that question of like, why am I still doing this, or that this thing is just sort of haunting him so much. It's just this look that he does here, where he's sort of like just uncomfortable and sort of wanting to get out of there.
I mean, genuinely, like, without wanting to sound too earnest, like I something really moves me about his performance in this, and indeed in everything else. And I think I've said this to you a number of times, because I really think he looks like he's been dropped from another planet. He does. Yeah. He looks like he's constantly trying to figure out, like, you know, how he can like fit into the world he's in. But he looks like he's really trying and enthusiastic about the fact that he's trying. And I just find it, especially in this, when it's a character who's really kind of lonely and isolated, and really believes that like this is his position in the world, is to do this very sad task.
The only thing he is there for.
Yeah.
This line, I when I was a kid, I thought he meant, did you spend time together as children? But then I realised later on that it's like, did you do time in prison together?
Yes,
It's like, how does he ask that? Like, that is, you know,
he's a brave reporter.
Yeah, he's got balls.
Yeah. Knox has balls.
Hello, balls.
I used to think this was the Joker as well.
Yeah.
Just in weird.
Oh yeah, it's something we didn't touch upon at the beginning as well. One of those similar to the like, oh, this is Bruce Wayne sort of thing, is at the beginning where so many people think that that's Bruce Wayne with his parents in the alleyway.
Oh, of course, yeah.
I think
like
almost everyone who watches this for the first time thinks that. And another one of those weird moments where it's like the sort of past coming back in the in the present, sort of history repeating itself.
I've also just noticed in this bit, like, have you noticed like all the kids are wearing really like modern clothing in this scene? They're wearing like the baseball caps and the jeans that were like you see in all those 80s films, like Big and things like that. I love this outfit that he's wearing. It's like weird ringmaster outfit, Jack Nicholson.
Just for this scene.
Hi, Vinny. It's your Uncle Bingo.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to know that Kim Basinger had her own costume designer for this film, which did not make Bob Ringwood, the main costume designer, happy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that displeased him a lot. But the interesting element that adds is that she's very much has like an 80s wardrobe in this, which comes along with her sort of being like,
they always describe her as like the only modern woman.
Yeah, or
some like
the person from the outside world as well. Like this city is almost trapped in this cycle of sort of history coming back and repeating itself again and again. Him being shot in the shoulder for some reason just there. I never understood that.
Again, but I kind of weirdly like it because for me it's a
so
character moment.
Yeah,
he's so kind of in his own little world. He doesn't notice a bullet like scathing his jacket.
And he doesn't even respond to her.
He doesn't respond to her when she approaches him.
Yeah.
And he just runs away. Like he almost like he can't process multiple things at once.
Maybe Vicky Vale loves him for the same reason that you do. Maybe that's what we've been missing this whole time.
Yeah, he's interesting. He's fun.
And
men of few words are the best men.
This bit makes everyone jump the first time. Also, shout out to Billy D. Williams as Harvey Dent. It's a shame we didn't see more of him.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen him go.
He wanted to do it.
Darker territory.
He was quite keen to do Two-Face.
I also, because he's here, Tracy Walter,
Bob.
who plays Bob.
Yeah.
I didn't realise that he's such a prolific character actor.
Oh yeah, he was
Shows
in
up in things like
Reaper Man.
Yeah, Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah. Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
He's really one of the things I think he's notable for is he is in a film called The Hunter, which is the legendary Steve McQueen's last film, and Tracy Walter plays the villain in that. And actually, maybe it wouldn't hold up so well now, but when I watched it as a kid, really scary villain, and like a proper like unhinged, terrifying performance. That's worth seeing, The Hunter, just for seeing Steve McQueen's last performance.
Put that on your watch list, folks.
Yeah.
Well, he's only in this film because of Jack Nicholson.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Jack personally requested for Tracy Walter to play Bob.
Oh, that's interesting. Do you know what he'd seen him in, or just...
They're very good friends. They're very close friends.
That makes sense.
I've spoofed this scene.
We'll
upload this to our YouTube channel at some stage. I have a little spoof that I've edited of this. Very entertaining.
So this is it. I love the idea that Alfred really ships Bruce and Bruce and Vicky.
Oh yeah, he really recognises what it truly means. I think there's that. He wants to support Bruce, but he also, recognises what this could mean.
Also, have you noticed that Michael Keaton is the only Batman in live-action films who thanks Alfred?
I hadn't noticed that, actually.
None of the others... Val Kilmer definitely doesn't thank Alfred.
He takes it for granted.
Rude bastard.
Yeah. I really love Vicky's apartment, the design of her apartment. I don't think it really gets brought up much. It's one of the environments that doesn't get enough sort of focus. But it's got this really... It's kind of clean and very bright and very sort of smoothed out, but there's still sort of girder work on the sort of top edges of it, holding it together.
They definitely go for the
sort of nest.
The idea of sort of German expressionism, which is like, is it anthropomorphizing like the spaces? Like they all seem like they have like their own character, their own personality. The
big question of when does this film take place? I mean, that says discontinued 1977.
Wait, what are all those?
It's the nerve gas that he uses.
Oh, okay.
The smiling, the Smilex.
Do you think there's anything significant about the American flag being there on his desk?
I didn't see that, actually. There you go. There's another
photo.
one.
There's an American flag. Because I don't know, hasn't there been debates about whether like the Joker is like ex-military and stuff like that?
No, I haven't read that.
Oh, I think I heard something about. I think maybe people
like a theory.
I think
for this.
Heath Ledger's Joker. I think people definitely think he could have been like a veteran who was completely disenfranchised and tried to bring like the chaos of what he experienced into the city.
A fun on the topic of Smilex, a fun cameo in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. They make it so that Charlie's dad works for a toothpaste company called Smilex.
I read this. Yeah. Yes, I saw that.
It's a nice little nod from Tim Burton, I'm assuming.
Okay, one of the big criticisms I found people had of this film is the Joker's motivation for the second half of the film is largely based upon wooing Vicky Vale. Yeah. I think it works, but what do you think?
I see what it means to him in that he wants to do whatever the hell he wants to society,
I think it works.
And he wants someone to frame it for him. He wants someone to put it in a photo frame and hang it up on a wall, because him doing it and no one recognizing it isn't good enough for him.
Absolutely. I think it completely works as like an egomaniac.
Some of the earlier scripts, the scene where Bruce tries to tell Vicky that he's Batman and Joker barges in, was rewritten a ton of times, and they never knew what to do with that scene. But originally it ended with the Joker kidnapping Vicky so that she could photograph the parade that he does at the end, which I think frames it much more accurately what he wants her to do.
Oh, okay.
Obviously it's mentioned in the museum in the final film, but you don't really get that. I can understand why people would criticize it, because it seems like he's just fawning over her rather than having any sort of end goal in mind.
But that's what I mean. I think even him fawning over her is kind of I think works as a motivation for the Joker. Because it's just like, is that idea, like he takes what he wants, and that is a sinister idea, and like a timeless one, considering, all these things about like misogyny.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I actually find this incarnation of the Joker slightly more threatening than the Heath Ledger one, in that the Heath Ledger one feels like he's trying to put out that message of sort of anarchy, whereas for this one it almost comes naturally. Like he storms into a museum playing Prince, gassing everyone to death, not because he's trying to make a message, but because he just wants to do it.
Yes. So this is an interesting comparison with the Dark Knight. I think the Dark Knight is an amazing. They're completely different.
I don't want to make that seem like a comparison of quality.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but I think one thing that I think people criticize this for. One thing I want to say in defense of this film is in the Dark Knight.
Because you haven't seen them said enough in defense of this film.
There's a lot of kind of discussion between characters, and there's a lot of examples of characters saying dialogue which kind of encompasses the themes of the films.
Yes.
There's a lots of slogans, kind of...
you either die a hero or you
live long enough to see the villain. It's not about who you are. It's all part of the plan. What's the one he says in the interrogation room?
I'm just ahead of the curve.
Yes, all those things.
Yeah.
And I think those same kinds of themes are being juggled in this film, but it's just characters don't talk about them.
Yeah.
It's all done in little looks, little visuals.
Yeah, that's how I like it.
Yeah.
Interesting thing coming up, which I didn't notice, but someone on YouTube did. In this police file, maybe Batman isn't the world's greatest detective, because you can see photos of the younger Joker right there on the left. And he just covers it up. He could have known.
Oh, that's funny. Do you think that was someone like put that in there, being like, "Oh, that's a really clever foreshadowing for later," but it not realizing that Bruce could have.
What it shows. Also, again, it shows that the psychological test took place in 1986. There's all these funny things, like, again, if the newspapers in this film, there's an excellent article on a website called Gotham Alleys, which has got so many great articles on the Batman film franchise. But one talks about when this film takes place, and almost all of the newspapers in this film point to a specific year in the 1940s, and yet so much of the rest of this points to the 80s.
Absolutely.
Sorry, great. I mean, this always makes people laugh in the cinema when I've gone to see this. The whole thing of like the news anchors not having any makeup on and like looking a mess after the cosmetics. But Harvey Dent can still afford his hair gel.
Oh, of course he can.
He can still flick his hair back.
Billy D. Williams. Yeah. Do you think he was? There's no way.
Come on, I gotta do my hair. What if it's in the cigars?
It could be.
Could be.
They need you in Gotham. They need you watching out for everyone.
Interesting fact, this scene takes place in the exact same room as that last one with Harvey Dent, only flipped.
Oh, really?
This is the same... I think it's in Pinewood again. This is like a meeting room in Pinewood. But that is basically the reverse angle of the same room in the previous.
Clever way
shows
of doing
how
it.
set dressing and lighting can change an environment.
Oh, it's the art gallery scene coming up.
Yeah. He's got to dye his hair yet as well.
So I think there's a few references coming up. So what's this actress's name again?
Jerry Hall.
Yeah, so Jerry Hall, I think this is quite a clear reference, her mask to Eyes Without a Face.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's so creepy.
Mm.
And also the burn she's revealed to have, I think, is a reference to Fritz Lang's The Big Heat. Did you ever watch that?
No, I didn't.
That's one of my favourite film noir films from the 1953. Really, really edgy. And it's like a detective who kind of like...
Yeah.
This isn't really a spoiler. He loses his family, but there's all this like really horrible, edgy stuff, which was kind of quite ahead of its time. Like, because the woman gets like coffee poured over her face, and that's what gives the fit. And she has like
it's very similar.
But then she becomes like, she's actually a great character because she becomes like more empowered in the end and gets the guy back.
Yeah.
It was a great film. I think it would be nice to make a list of the films that we're calling out, because The Big Heat is really good.
I love this set, by the way. So many of the sets in this, I love the sort of industrial flavouring that it has. You know, so many, you know, the weird porthole windows and the sort of girder work, and everything in this city feels like it has some sort of weird mechanical purpose.
It's funny that, like, you know, we're recording this in Bristol. This feels like a building, like the
It's like Brown's next to Wills Memorial Building,
and, like M Shed and stuff like that.
I remember saying that to my dad, because they based this a lot on 70s and 80s New York, which at the time planning permission was all over the place, and whatever was being built on top of whatever. So they kind of came up with this idea of a city that is just being built layer upon layer, you know, just old stuff being built on top of new stuff, and opposite. New stuff being built on top of old stuff.
Yeah.
And it all never quite congeals. It's this weird tangle of architecture. So leading on to this is my maybe this will be my one sort of like big statement of the film. But this scene, I'm surprised that nobody has picked up on, like, the real sort of, well, I don't want to say the one meaning behind it, because that goes against what I've been saying, but what I take from this scene,
the gallery
is like,
scene.
It's like artistic revisionism. So at the time, a big deal, or a few years prior, one of the big things had been like the restoration of old sort of public domain films, and obviously there's a lot of controversy with Ted Turner colorizing black and white films. And the idea of authorship and who is truly in ownership of a film. And to me, this is just like a massive reminder of that, of the Joker coming in and like colorizing all these classic pieces of art. And like, you know, where you've got that classical piece of music playing earlier. I can't remember what it is. The you know, when she first walks in.
Yeah, it's in a lot of stuff, isn't it?
Yeah. And then he comes in, he's playing like Prince.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's kind of...
I think it's a great moment.
Yeah.
I think people always forget, because I think a few people are also quite cynical about the Prince soundtrack.
Yeah.
It's used pretty sparingly.
I've never really had a problem with it.
It's just this one song, and it works fantastically well.
I think it works for the scene,
Yeah.
I think maybe Trust is used a bit too long in the parade, but...
Oh, yeah, actually, that's a good point.
Yeah.
But this
I think this works
well.
perfectly. It goes on for exactly the right amount of time.
I think now that all the goons are around, can you quickly tell the...
What, Mac McDonald?
Yeah. It's so sad.
Yeah, so this is a story up online.
We've been very kind to Jack, but this is something...
So the guy who was painting the... I think he was painting the sculptured head earlier, is an actor called Mac McDonald. I believe he's British. And he came on board as one of the goons for the film and was incredibly excited. I won't go into the full story, but basically one day on set, he sort of went up to Jack Nicholson and was like, you know, I'm playing one of your goons, nice to meet you. And uncharacteristically, by the sounds of things, Jack was just like, he literally just sort of leant back and went, "Goon on, Mac," and just sort of left him to it.
It's
a real shame, because a lot of the stories about Jack Nicholson in this are very
because didn't Matt McDonald, the makeup woman, was like, that's something you never do in Hollywood. You never introduce yourself to the main star. Either they introduce themselves to you, but you never like interrupt them in their flow. And it's like, fuck that.
Yeah, that's true.
It's bollocks. Yeah. It's like...
And John Evans was saying at the Q&A that Jack Nicholson was the only actor he's ever worked with who came up to the special effects warehouse to see all the effects whilst they were being made. So for most actors, they'll just sort of see them on the day when they're shooting, say, this is wrong and nothing can be done about it because it's about to be used. It's been finished for the film. But Jack Nicholson would actually go out of his way to come up to the special effects warehouse and see stuff when it was being made. Make alterations.
It's an odd one because, like you said, it seems kind of uncharacteristic. Like I think he's clearly probably had no problem being blunt and rude. I get that sense from him, but I think he definitely believes in like the integrity of what he's working on.
He was so supporting of Tim Burton. I mean, his casting in this comes about because basically he was working with John Peters, the producer. Here's another John Peters. We haven't spoken enough about John Peters, but we will hopefully bring up a bit more. Fucking crazy. So he was working with George Miller on Witches of Eastwick, Jack Nicholson, and John Peters was a producer on that. And there was the conflict between John Peters and George Miller was quite intense because John Peters would keep seeing films and wanting to put ideas from those films. And there was a stage where he said, this is in Witches of Eastwick, a sort of feminist film about 3 women trying to sort of overcome the devil, played by Jack Nicholson. And John Peters said, shortly after seeing Aliens at the cinema, we really ought to have an alien in this. And I think it was at that stage that George Miller got so angry that he stormed off set and basically said, I'm not coming back to direct this until you fuck off. And Jack Nicholson was very, very supportive of George Miller in that situation. And so when it came to Batman, John Peters had to sort of convince Jack Nicholson to work with him again, because Jack Nicholson was so sort of tired of what happened on the Witches of Eastwick. The ending of that film also got reshot because of John Peters' influence, and it's a bizarre ending. I'm sure anyone who's seen it will agree. It's an awful ending.
John Peters essentially is just a producer who's worked on a lot of these like big films, like we'll take
works in quotation marks.
Yeah,
he hovers about.
We'll work on things like he
Witches
takes credit
Eastwick,
for Witches of Eastwick, Rain Man, Midnight Express, which I just found out
American
earlier.
Werewolf in London.
And basically, he's just completely nuts. I think. Definitely also probably add a link to Kevin Smith's story about him.
Superman
fantastic.
Lives, yes.
But that makes total sense because one thing you can say about Jack Nicholson is he clearly knows what he's doing in terms of story and how films should work.
Yeah.
If you look at some of his stuff, it's just incredible.
When Tim Burton was having problems with John Peters on this, Jack Nicholson really put himself behind Tim Burton and really said to him, you get whatever you want from them, really go for it. Gave him that support. You've got to remember Tim Burton was 30 or maybe younger.
He was 29 when he got the gig, wasn't he?
Incredible.
Which is unbelievable.
Best movie car ever there. Sorry, just pointing that out.
It's pretty good.
Pretty good.
It's okay. No, it's fantastic.
There's another design that kind of influenced everything that came afterwards. I think a lot of the Batmobiles that came after this, you can see...
Chicks dig the car.
That car as well, yeah, I guess. Such an incredible design. I'll always like this, the hobo that throws the garbage at them.
Isn't this the scene? I think Mac McDonald, Goon on Mac, is driving in this scene because the stuntman didn't show up.
Oh yeah, I think it wasn't that part of this. I can't remember, to be honest. There's so much of this information crammed in my brain.
You know a crazy amount about the making of this film.
Like I say, this is what got me into filmmaking. So I learned a lot about the making of this film. I mean, there wasn't a lot of set to be driving around on this film because this is all on a soundstage. A sort of block of Gotham City.
It was one of the largest outdoor.
It still
sets,
is.
It
still was. It's still by sort of.
It's Pinewood, isn't it?
Yeah, on the back lot. It's an incredible set. I really wish they had kept it, but unfortunately they tore it down after Batman Returns started filming. I suppose you can't really.
I think it's more.
So
I think it's more on the street level where you see a lot of the more modern influences on the art design. Like I said, there's like all the litter. Like the shops look very kind of contemporary with the neon signs.
Something I didn't realise, although the obvious influence here with behind Vicky Vale taking her high heels off is so that she can run. Apparently, she also took them off because every time she stepped on the car with the heels, it would scratch the car. So they solved that problem. Also,
they've had a chase for about 5 minutes, and she's screamed probably.
Yeah, this is when she starts to lose agency, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's a shame.
She still has a few nice moments, like when she's sort of trying to get the photos and when she's in the cave with him, but I think in all of the action scenes it kind of undoes. I love this motion she does where she's like, oh, for fuck's sake, why am I going up there?
That's the thing. Like, I think she works on a character level, but it's just a shame that I think
as soon as the gun fight
it's like
starts,
all kind of so many female characters in action films back at this stage are like unrealistically incapable.
Yeah,
it just I don't believe that they would be so useless in real life. And I think particularly James Cameron at this point was starting to show that you could have really strong, good female characters.
I mean, Terminator 2 was 2 years after. So
but Aliens which is
exactly.
and The Abyss, there's plenty of good ones.
Apparently, Tim Burton liked the sort of photo flash effect in this sequence so much that he put it in earlier when he kicks the guy through the door at the beginning of the film. You see a flash across the screen. It's a bit like here when they're using it on all of the sort of impacts. Bang! I really like the effect. I think it's got that bam wham pow effect.
Yes. I've never noticed that before.
Really?
No. There's a couple of his goons that are just like.
Yeah. This feels like something John Peters would have added in. It's like, the guy in the sword guy in Raiders.
The Karate Kid or something like that.
I thought Raiders of the Lost Ark, like when he kicks him.
Oh yeah, he's definitely just watched Raiders of the Lost Ark.
I feel like
John Peters is an interesting guy to look up in that, like, you see that
he takes a lot of credit for this film. He takes a lot of credit for all the films he's been on.
But also, like, if you ever doubted the idea that, like, someone who's completely nuts and doesn't know what they're talking about can cement themselves so much up as like a Hollywood big dog, then
there was going to be an extended. In fact, they shot an extended fight with Bob. A knife fight between him and Batman, but again, the simple "bring it on" gesture won it over.
You wouldn't fight Batman, would you? Are there any other just to go a bit outside of this specific film? Are there any other like live action Batmans that you like? What do you think of Christian Bale?
I like it. I mean, I like the direction that they went with those films, where it feels more like a journey of a man, sort of finding his sort of place in the world. It's made more explicit what his sort of thought processes are.
Yeah,
and I like it on that level, and for the sort of level of realism.
We definitely have to talk about this scene. This is the scene where he's driving Vicky back to the Batcave.
Is this the scene?
This is the scene.
This is one of my favourite scenes in any film, just for the level of atmosphere. It's sort of just we haven't really spoken about Danny Elfman's score, which is just one of the major highlights of this film.
It's very, very strange in this scene, in a great way.
And just seeing the car going that fast. Wow.
But I also love that it's like, it makes you question how far are these like woods away from Gotham.
Oh, yeah.
It's like entering another world entirely. And I didn't realise as well that the bit where she starts to look closely at him, he switches a light on in her face.
Oh, you didn't notice that?
No.
Yeah.
Is it happening now?
Yeah. The sort of side glance as he gives And I like the design influence for the Batcave was almost to make it seem like the foundations of Gotham City. So you can see pipe work and sort of concrete walls and this sort of abyss bordered by foundation work.
Yeah.
Which, again, ties into that idea of sort of tragedy being built upon and sort of buried deep beneath the surface.
Oh, that's a nice
that's great.
That's beautiful.
No, I love it.
Did you write that in your essay about Batman?
Probably. That's a wonderful matte painting there. There's some
Yeah.
fantastic matte paintings in this. Some of the special effects that really do hold up. And they're great survivors like him.
That's the other thing. It would have been so easy for him to do like a big speech about the bats and why he likes them.
I think there was one. I think there was a longer line, and then they cut it down to just that.
Bats are the fiercest animals
in the animal kingdom. In the nocturnal kingdom. I think that's another matte as well.
It looks like one.
And some of the lighting work here is absolutely fantastic. The way they keep him sort of shrouded in shadow, and hide his eyes at some points and then light them up at other points. And again, we're still kind of going through the perspective of Vicky Vale, like trying to sort of look, the way she's sort of examining him as he speaks, and sort of trying to go a little bit deeper.
Yeah. And also what he's doing with his eyes at the moment, you can see that he's awkward.
Yeah.
And you can see that he's kind of like the
this,
attraction to her is absolutely still there.
This shot is fantastic, the way his eyes are lit. And again, this touches on the same themes as The Dark Knight, the whole sort of how different am I from you, without being too over the top. Some people say the same thing about you. And I remember talking about it to a friend. I said, Batman's not that much crazier than the villains he fights. And they were like, what do you mean? Of course he's the hero. And it's like, well, he dresses up as a bat. So, there's something clearly not quite right about him.
Yeah.
He's taken an interesting approach to having his parents killed.
That's kind of explored through a number of the kind of the darker superheroes. I remember there's a big line in the second season of Daredevil where the Punisher says to Daredevil, "You're one bad day away from being me."
Yeah. Well, that's a Killing Joke again, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, it's a big theme, but I think it's never true. It's never more true than Batman,
especially where there's such an emphasis upon violence, the level of violence he takes to his enemies.
Yeah.
A nice contrast in this is from the beginning of the film when he's holding the goon and he says, "I'm not going to kill you," and then at the very end when he's holding the Joker and he says, "I'm going to kill you."
Yes.
You see that flip, that sort of where he's.
Does
been
he
pushed
kill
to.
anyone in this?
He throws the goon down the bell tower. He's fighting the black guy at the top of the bell tower.
But isn't that like more of a self-defense motion? I don't know, or is it?
Well, I think that's your mileage may vary for all of them. And obviously he punches the Joker off the edge, but then of course he survives. It's funny because in the NES video game based upon this, once you defeat the Joker, he literally just throws him off the roof. It's really funny.
Now get out of here.
He just says, "Now you will dance with the devil in the pale moonlight."
Oh, really?
Throws him off the cathedral.
That's good. And I just noticed as well, that the bit where she calls Knox and says, "Can we make the evening issue?"
Yeah.
And then he goes just about, hangs up, and then he's like...
Copy, and then he's right there.
Yeah. But then it cuts immediately, and it just made me think, I think this film is really, really brilliantly paced. I think all the scenes... It's so rare where you have a film where all the scenes are pretty much exactly the right length. They all start and finish at exactly the right time. It's such an important thing.
Quick enough to keep that action pace, but slow enough to really give the characters room to breathe.
Really
and to
takes its
show
time.
themselves.
Yeah.
Love that sort of fog going across there.
Yeah, you can tell for this dialogue here when Alfred's with Bruce that he clearly really is fond of Vicky, and that's...
He respects Bruce's sort of decisions, but wants to lay the information out.
It makes you think, though. Do you think Vicky and Alfred ever have conversations that we don't see? Or do you think? I don't know.
Probably not. It's probably to the extent that we see earlier. I sent you the link to this scene with score, didn't I? Because this scene originally had Danny Elfman scored for this scene, some music. And it plays out completely differently. I prefer it without.
I can't imagine this scene with music. I think there's something...
You can find it on YouTube. There's a track that he recorded and that was cut from the film. But it really shows... I mean, the rest of the film I wouldn't want to remove or add to a lot of the music. I think the score for this is virtually perfect.
You love this scene as well.
Oh, I love this scene. Again, you just get to see sort of how awkward he is, and I think between they just don't get enough scenes together. Or maybe that's just me being sort of hopeful about their relationship. I really enjoy their sort of chemistry.
I love the idea that when he answers the door, he looks so nervous.
Yeah.
Or when he knocks at the door, he looks so nervous. And I love the idea that he's more scared about coming and talking
Yeah.
to Becky about his
Yeah.
feelings than he is about
Like
going
beating
out
her,
as a
yeah.
bat and fighting
Yeah.
the Joker.
Well, this bit, when he sort of forces her down and says, "I have to tell you something," and then when he gets around to it, he's just like so agitated and like,
Yeah.
"How do I actually do this?" and also her sort of saying, when he says, how normal people sort of goes downstairs and have breakfast and kiss someone goodbye, which isn't an alien concept, but she sort of says no.
Yeah.
I feel like it almost adds to that like crapsack world feeling that this isn't a usual world. This is kind of something that's a bit darker than maybe our reality.
This is what I mean though, like her responses in this scene are actually really interesting. Like she's completely challenging him and she wants to get as much out of him as possible. Like a good like motivation. So it's like whenever there is an action happening, she's like a great character.
Yeah. Because they went. I think in the end, funnily enough, this was actually more or less come up with by Tim Burton, John Peters, Michael Keaton, and Kim Basinger. This dialogue. Because they're having so much trouble with this scene, they re-scripted it a ton of times. Some of the early drafts are difficult to read; they're so poor.
Oh really?
And they just sat down and said, how would this turn out? You play Batman, I'll play... I'm pretty sure it's Tim Burton and John Peters. They're like, you play Bruce Wayne, I'll play Vicky Vale. How would they have this conversation? And just worked it from there. And then got the actors to sort of embellish it.
Well, that can work often a lot better. There's so many great scenes, classic moments in cinema, which only happened because actors were allowed to just kind of play and do their job.
I mean, I know a complaint about this scene that a lot of people have is that it doesn't really culminate in much. Bruce Wayne doesn't tell her anything and sort of leaves. The Joker comes and leaves with empty-handed. But I think you find out a lot about the characters within this scene.
I think it's. I think maybe that criticism is valid. It's just something that I've not really had to. I don't know. I've always been so engaged in what's happening at the time. When he shoots Bruce, is it that the little metal thing shields him?
Yeah.
That's lucky that
he got shot in the chest rather than the head.
That covers about I don't know, maybe 2% of his
Yeah.
body.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
therefore I don't like the film anymore. Plot hole, stupid.
One of the things for the costume design, one of the reasons why they went for a black costume with the yellow emblem was that they wanted a yellow emblem to almost act as a target, so that if someone was sort of shooting at Batman and frightened, they're going to want to shoot at whatever they see first, and this bright emblem on his chest would be able to protect him.
Yes,
that's
a good
shielding.
Yeah. If only he had the yellow emblem now.
Yeah.
This scene would make more sense. This is the iconic
Let's Get Nuts.
Let's Get Nuts scene.
Whoever's not following the Academy of Getting Nuts on Facebook, please do so.
Oh, there are some fabulous memes. Even for someone who doesn't live and breathe Batman 89 like Oliver does, I can vouch for some very funny
their
memes.
taste in humour is pretty on point.
It's I was like, are you sure you didn't make this?
Oh yeah, some of my stuff is worthy.
Yeah, and I love this moment as well. I think I remember when I first saw this, I was like, why is Batman doing this? And then when I watched this again, I was just like, oh no, he's nuts.
Yeah, he makes it clear. The interesting thing is you get Bruce Wayne and Jack Napier when he shoots his parents. You got Bruce Wayne and the Joker here. You get Batman and Jack Napier in the chemical plant, and then you get Batman and the Joker in the cathedral.
All the different pairings.
Yeah, it's so neat, so tied up. You go dance with the devil. Would you say that's the most memorable quote from the film?
I
suppose I'm Batman before he is, isn't it?
I'm Batman!
I don't know if the popcorn bowl was added by Kim Basinger. 'Cause she said in an interview about like just standing around with a popcorn bowl watching these two guys go at it, and from a sort of like female gaze sort of point of view. It's just on the mantelpiece, and she picks it up and just starts playing around with it, and then drops it at the end of the scene.
I guess that's probably something I could imagine myself doing in a moment like that, like fiddling with something.
Yeah.
I'm in the most like stressed situations I've been in, or the most kind of scared I've been. I think I've often found myself doing that, and that's what I mean. I think all three of these main actors clearly have an idea of like what grounds the story in truth, and I think it's the perfect balance between them all being slightly otherworldly, a bit crazy, and yet doing things that kind of you believe human people would do.
Yeah. I think you can see where the bullet's going to hit it before it's even hit it. It's like a mark on the tray when he picks it up originally. Just to ruin the film that little bit
there's
more.
the weird
and
Jack in the Box.
Tim Burton said that Kim Basinger could feint very well as well. Just like go down.
They are really good at feigning.
Just fall. I've never been able to do that. Just fall over on command.
Yeah,
I'm too worried about banging my head or something.
Yes,
That's
I don't know if I could do it either.
Yeah. They just went down.
Like in like the acting I've done, like I've been quite comfortable like throwing myself on the floor, but I think fainting, like there's something about like falling backwards and really like letting your body
it's a leap
go
of faith.
floppy.
Yeah.
Kim's a braver woman than I am.
Yeah, I was working in the Bristol Archive a couple of years ago, and they had these machines in there, and I couldn't help but think about Batman. These old-fashioned, I can't remember what they're called, the newspaper machines. But they had a whole row of these that you could use.
They're really cool.
Apparently, Pat Hingle, who plays Commissioner Gordon in this, who you're not a big fan of, shot a bit of content.
He's okay. I think he works in this film.
Yeah.
He becomes a problem in the Joel Schumacher.
Oh yeah, he's cartoonified in those.
But I prefer like I do think that's one of the things that definitely like, I think Gary
Oldman
is
excellent.
fantastic. It completely suits that part.
I like this as well, where Alfred kind of voices his concern. He doesn't like put his foot down, but he sort of like makes himself known. Sort of,
you can see that he's worried about.
I love that little thing that he does with his hand. Which something else that I noticed is like there's a lot of natural sort of like agitated movements that you notice in all the performances in this. Like
exactly.
Kim Basinger does stuff with her hands that she does in a lot of like interviews and things where she's sort of like uncomfortable about something. She starts like moving her fingers about and
Does she do that in press meetings for Cool World?
Yeah, all the time. And Michael Keaton sort of like strokes his sort of mouth and his chin, and I think it just adds to how natural those performances are.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's like I said, my favourite thing about the film.
Because we've gone way past the scene where I was going to mention this. Beginning on the whole like Vicky Vale in the Batcave thing, or her finding out about Batman, I don't get why people don't see. For me, it's pretty clear that she has some idea as to who Batman is from the scene where Alex Knox says, "What do you suppose something like this does to a kid?" And she just storms off.
People think she doesn't.
She doesn't know, and that Alfred just leads her into the Batcave.
No, she clearly no. Yeah.
yeah. I know. I think that, but a lot of that's why they made the joke in Batman Returns.
If you
it's
think
like
that
why would Alfred
stupid.
let Vicky Vale into the Batcave? I think it makes sense, but yeah. Who am I? Comments on festival.
Kinky black gloves. Look how shiny they are.
Yeah.
Weird. But yeah, this is a great moment though. How kind of like vacuous the people of Gotham.
Oh yeah. Like you question who wins.
They're all so desperate and looking for.
You question who wins the fight between the Joker and Batman, because Joker swindles everyone.
Yes.
And he's basically shown Batman the true nature of these people, that they will just die for whoever makes the biggest claim for their sort of leadership or their what they want. This is a superb
And
scene.
that's another nice thing, in that like you really believe that Jack Napier thinks he's like the protagonist in his own film.
Yeah.
He did like.
Well, that's the thing. That's what's so liberating about the Joker, is that as soon as he, any sort of semblance of self-control is lost. He just does whatever he likes once he.
Can I just say, I know we're going to talk about this scene a lot, because I think this is both of ours. I think it's my favourite scene in the film, where he remembers. He makes the connection between Jack Napier and the death of his parents. I love the score. It's called "Childhood Remembered" on the Danny Elfman score.
Superb.
There's a fantastic YouTube comment on the soundtrack, which is like, does anyone else put this on at their computer and then completely act as Michael Keaton does and like stroke their chin and like?
I think everyone does.
Yeah, I definitely do it.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's such a. I don't
so
know what it is. There's
tender. And so sort of. Even the score that follows, the sort of love theme between him and
they
Vicky
blend
Bell.
really beautifully into each other.
That riff on Prince's "Scandalous" song, it's just so sort of muted compared to a lot of the score in this. It's so melancholic.
And I like the whole way it's shot. Like there's such like an exaggeration on the fog. It's like a nightmare. It feels sort of fairy tale. Like.
I was talking to a friend the other day, comparing this to the one in Batman Begins. I think with Batman Begins, it plays out very matter of fact, like a sudden tragedy that happens, and it's like this random tragedy, this random act that just suddenly happens, and before you know it, it's over. Whereas here, it's very much a traumatic memory. This is how Bruce Wayne is picturing it in his head, as a nightmare, something that has twisted itself into something so threatening over the years.
And they're just, and all the people who did this to him, who did this to his parents, they're all in shadow. They're all like
the last looks that his parents
silhouettes.
take.
Yeah. And also, it's that whole thing about like being triggered by events like this. It really focuses on like the dropping of the popcorn, the dropping of the pearls.
Again, Tim Burton recognising what images mean, mixing those pearls with the popcorn, knowing that it's such a striking image to see, and that there are so many meanings that you could take from that. And shout out to Hugo Blick, who does a great young Jack Napier.
Have a dance with the devil in the pale moonlight.
Watch out for him in Blackadder. He's in
Is he?
an episode of series 4, I believe, of Blackadder. He plays a German officer.
He's got a brilliant face for an actor.
Yeah, really wild eyes.
Yeah. But yeah, this moment now where he looks at the screen, the music, the way it kind of soars slightly and then comes back down for when Vicky enters, it's
so everyone
it's a
hated
brilliant
this,
brilliant
but
score.
I think it's great.
It's so obvious that she figures it out.
Yeah.
It's just.
And I kind of like that this is their last. For me, this almost concludes like the dramatic arc of the film, where it's like, can we work this out? I don't know if we can. It's such a like, separate from like the climax and sort of seeing him against the bat signal.
Yes.
It's such a great sort of final interaction between them, where there's it's all thrown into sort of disarray whether they can actually make it as a pair. There's so much hope before, and they're just sort of like, we're focused on such different things. And I love the contrast in their costume as well. Very obvious. But...
That's a great line he just said there as well. Look, when he says, sometimes I don't really know what to think about all this.
Because I'm the only one who can. It really, like, it's that sort of thing that a lot of people deal with when they're trying to deal with sort of depression. Not that I want to go too much into experience, but, when you're dealing with this sort of thing on your own and you're just like, I need to deal with it, and you force it all upon yourself. It's something.
Well, it's holding yourself to an amount of responsibility.
Yeah.
And when someone
your
tries
responsibility for your own actions.
And when someone comes to you and says, "No, I'm here. I care about you, and I'm here to help," and you still feel like it's your responsibility. That's why I absolutely adore the scene in Batman Mask of the Phantasm when he's by the grave and he's like begging his dead parents
to
understand that he's fallen in love
yeah.
and doesn't want to be Batman. And then Andrea literally comes to him and it's like,
yeah,
I'm here for you and I love you and I,
anyone who hasn't checked
enough.
out
that's
that
enough.
film,
You deserve this. And I think that's such a
if you haven't seen Batman Mask of the Phantasm, please do yourself a favour and watch it.
It's just the best film ever. It's
not talked about enough.
It's so wonderful. I'm sure eventually we'll do a commentary about this.
Oh yeah,
which will probably just be me crying because I love it.
Always bug me, these bombs that come out of the wheels.
How go?
Mechanically, how does that work? Because you can't fit them into the wheels like that. Sorry.
Just switch your brain off.
Yeah. Should switch my brain off.
Switch your brain off.
This was a difficult
It's Batman.
scene
to... it
was a difficult scene to shoot because they were trying to blow the whole plant up whilst not marking the Batmobile. It's like set off these charges at the right time so that stuff doesn't hit it and crush it. They only had 2 Batmobiles built for this. This is an incredible fact. So General Motors and Ford Motor Company were both bidding to make the Batmobile for this movie.
Oh, really?
They wanted 2 to 3 years to develop the car. In the end, John Evans and his team built the car in 12 weeks, compared to 3 years that 2 of the top motor companies in the world were demanding.
Wow.
They built 2 of these in 12 weeks. There's a lot going on with the Batmobile that you can probably look up. I'm going to suck up the remainder of this commentary about it, but it's an incredible story to read up on.
So this is the only other Prince song that really plays out, isn't it?
That's the thing.
Definitely works towards the beginning.
I think it just lulls for maybe 2. It maybe lasts for 2 shots too long or something like that. It's not even that. It doesn't overstay its welcome that much, but just by a few shots. I love Bob's dancing.
Yeah, can we talk about the fact that
Mac's on the bottom row on the right there.
Goon on Mac. Can we talk about the fact that the goons dancing, the fact that they're kind of going for it as much as they can, but they also look kind of uncomfortable.
Oh yeah, there are scenes where Bob looks really uncomfortable,
and I love the idea of like them all being slightly scared. Of like Jack Napier, like the Joker, and him just being like, "You gotta dance." Or they won't believe it.
Yeah,
they won't like it.
Yeah. Well, there's that feeling of he's gonna snap at any time.
Yes.
Which is proven in a moment or two, or quite a while, but in a few minutes. Another thing that was cut was that the comment earlier about him having his face on the $1 bill. Originally, it was going to be revealed that these notes had the Joker's face printed on them and that they were all forgeries.
Oh, that would have made sense.
I don't think they shot that because the bills that they used don't have the Joker's face on them. But, maybe maybe they just got stock notes and then they would have made another one for a close-up.
Monopoly money.
Yeah.
You must be the Monopoly
He's
guy.
got the Monopoly guy on it. He's tricked us.
Thanks for the free parking.
You can see Bob breaking out the Monopoly boxes in there. Yeah, Prince's soundtrack is kind of interesting for those who haven't heard it. Because he really went for it with this film. He cranked out so much material.
And you really love some of the songs on it, don't you?
Some of them, yeah. I mean, a lot of it that he made never got released, including one song, Dance with the Devil, which I'd recommend looking up because there's a bootleg of it on the internet. And it's one of the best songs, and it's a tragedy that it wasn't on the final album.
Oh, I don't think I've heard that.
It was basically made to match up the cathedral scene, and it's really sort of brooding and dark. But some of the songs are great. I really love The Future, which you hear a little bit at the very beginning of the film, and Electric Chair, which you hear in the a bit in the charity party scene. Plus Scandalous, which plays at the end credits. I really like those songs, but there are some stinkers on there as well. It's very clear that you made a lot of music in a very short amount of time.
Just imagine being an extra in this scene, the parade scene, and how exciting it would be to see like Jack Nicholson in that makeup, speaking into the microphone,
Microwave.
microphone,
burning his face.
I just want to talk another thing about Jack Nicholson. Do you know some of the actors who were considered for playing the Joker?
This is where we go into disinformation. Tell me what you know, and I will.
I heard some rumours.
What are your rumours?
The
James Woods, Willem Dafoe.
And none of these true.
It's debatable because I've never heard them discussed by official sources.
What do you think James Woods would be like?
I think he'd be pretty good.
Hey,
they're not bad choices. I don't think James Woods would be as good as Jack Nicholson.
Batman, you some kind of libtard?
Yeah, look at this parade. All these libtards bowing to me.
That's a small note. If you don't know, look up James Woods on Twitter. Like
Get some popcorn like Vicky Vale and just sit down and read
like
James Woods.
Republican transphobic nutter. Great actor though.
Jack Nicholson was a very, very early consideration,
sure, yeah.
so I don't think they really... There's an image, Michael Uslan, who should really be credited as one of the main producers behind this, because he basically got the project moving, has a newspaper clipping from when The Shining came out, where he tipexed over the famous picture of Jack Nicholson poking his head through the door, to make him look like the Joker, and it was kind of that picture that he shopped around to people to say Jack Nicholson needs to be the Joker.
He at the time as well. It seems like such an obvious choice. I like this bit. Knox kind of trying to be
he's being the hero,
the everyman.
Doesn't quite manage it, but he tries it. That's the thing. This is another part where Vicky probably could have done more.
Yes,
she doesn't. She should be out there doing it.
That's the thing. Like you've got to hold like these films, even older films, to the standard that like if it was made now, like her as like an active character in these action scenes, it wouldn't be good enough.
No. A lot of these, considering what I was saying earlier about the special effects, a lot of the Batwing shots really hold up, I think. The only thing that doesn't is that whatever they did with the blue screen, I don't know if you noticed, a lot of like the yellow is missing from the image. So like the caution stripes and his Batman symbol are like white rather than yellow.
Oh, I haven't noticed this at all.
It really bugs me. And like later on the cathedral, like the Joker's jacket is like a maroon colour rather than purple because some of the colour's missing.
I think it's testament to the film that we're looking at it in this detail.
Yeah. Whoa.
Pulled a funny face.
So yeah, she was. I think Batman was gonna like drape him and all this stuff. This was gonna be where he originally died or whatever. But he survived.
No, they got to keep Knox in the film.
Yeah, like you can't see it there because it's not green screen, but or blue screen it would have been for this film. Their skin tones are kind of funny. I'll leave it alone.
Oh, this is one of my. I think this might be my favourite line in the film coming up.
Yes. He just says it in such a dazed way.
When Jack Dingles goes, "You stole my balloons." This is the most
this is
brilliant
when
moment.
This is the warning that the goons get that he's gonna snap at any moment.
Isn't it? It's a trait of like a really good film villain where like something like that upsets him, and then 2 minutes
he's just
later,
in disbelief.
He just starts shooting people like really.
I need a moment or two, but alone, boys.
Yeah, because I was really surprised when I first watched this bit where this is the death of Bob.
You know, the 3 action figures they released for this film were Batman, Joker, and Bob. I think it's easy to know which one is more in demand.
Everyone wants a Bob toy.
He kicks as well. He's got like a kicking motion. His memorable kick from the movie. The money shot.
The money shot.
Had to do it.
I like it.
Yeah, I like it.
I think it's cool.
Fun. I really like the design of the Batwing as well.
Because this scene, do you know if in the Dark Knight they've like directly credited this scene coming up with the whole hit me in the
I don't know if it's been directly credited, but it's one of... There's a lot of similarities between this and Batman Returns and the Dark Knight trilogy. There's a lot of like bits.
You can't really ignore these two films, though, can you? You've got to kind of...
yeah. That's what's curious to me, is that this film doesn't get credited a huge amount now in terms of like this current superhero crop, but this was pretty much the first one not only to have like a distinctive visual style to it, but also to sort of treat a lot of the characters with like psychological levity.
Yes.
And to sort of reimagine them in a vaguely realistic style, like what I was saying earlier about the bat suit. And even like you can see like the Batwing with a more sort of militaristic design to it. And also the marketing. One thing that you got to credit John Peters with was that he came up with just the bat emblem. So they were batting around, no pun intended, loads of different poster. They had to come up at some point. Loads of different poster designs which looked all futuristic, and had the Batman, Joker, and they even had a tagline for it: "What only one of them can claim the night or the light," or something like that. And all these designs, and all of them look generic. And John Peters approached Anton first and just said, "Just draw the logo, just do the logo, and make a poster out of that." And that's where the gold symbol came out.
It's considered one of the best posters.
It's immensely influential, because if you consider now the number of blockbusters that come out of teaser posters where it's just the logo and it just gives you a date, like Jurassic Park or any of the current superhero films that are coming out. The only thing before this that even attempted that was Ghostbusters, which even then they had traditional poster designs.
Oh yeah, of course. And you look at the classic posters of the 80s, and it's often what's
very
the style of
elaborate.
artwork?
Drew Struzan, John Alvin, all of that sort of thing.
Or like
very
Raiders of the Lost Ark, and it has like most of the characters on it as well. But now, even like modern comic book movies, like, I think the most memorable poster of Logan is just his like bruised hand with the claws coming down.
Yeah, this set a huge precedent, and the symbol was absolutely everywhere in America in 1989. And people were apparently sick of the movie before it even came out because it was so prolific.
I think to end this film in a cathedral, like a fight in a cathedral, is so like perfectly theatrical for these characters.
Again, this was a scene or a sequence that they had real trouble coming up with, because there was originally stuff with him having a bomb, and you can look up earlier drafts.
Don't need it.
Well, that's the thing, Jack Nicholson and John Peters went to see Phantom of the Opera whilst they were filming this, and came up with the whole chase up the cathedral and dancing at the very top. And it's funny to quote the assistant producer at this anniversary screening. They would ask John Peters, how did the goons get up there? And John Peters would say, well, who cares? They're up there.
Who fucking cares?
They're up there. We're gonna have a street fight. But I love this. This is probably one of my favourite climaxes to a film, in terms of just the score, the atmosphere, how absolutely torn apart Batman is physically. All of them are kind of like, especially by the end, all of them are kind of...
Yeah, you can tell he's tired,
There's
which
a
is
physical
always
energy
good.
to it. There's an incredibly dangerous stunt coming up where the bell is dropped from the clock tower, and it's as dangerous as it looks, basically. That bell was within inches of killing the stuntman. But it just adds to like the physical heft of this scene.
Yeah.
And it's a smart idea not to have just Batman fighting this brand of the Joker. It makes total sense for him to be fighting all these goons whilst the Joker's,
Absolutely, where he's just dancing around, like hogging all the glory, having fun. I think it's something so unjust about their whole relationship, and that like Joker is constantly having fun, and Batman spends his life like miserably trying to stop him. Yeah.
A fun fan theory which I've come up with. This is less of a patching up of a plot hole and more just a fan theory. Everyone asks, where are the police during the parade scene? And I always say, well, half of them you see in the bar, like basically getting, excited about the fact that the Joker's going to be throwing money everywhere. And considering the chemical plant just blew up, I would imagine that a lot of, when a chemical plant's blown up, I'm pretty sure it's right next to a river as well, isn't it?
Or it's like the Dark Knight Rises, where all 5,000.
Oh yeah, where they're
go
all
into
in the tunnels. Yeah, I'm sure there's a fan theory for
such
that
a
as
silly
well. Yeah,
moment.
yeah, like I say.
So yeah, here's the bell stunt coming up.
So you can see. Yeah, I think you can even see how shocked he is when it goes past. It's like he's like. But yeah, that bell weighed as much as it looks.
I miss practical stunts.
Is Commissioner Gordon having a lot of agency as well?
Is he trying to move the bell? There's this bell in the way. I can't move it.
And he goes, let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go.
That's the one thing I like about Pat Hingle. I like how nice he is to all the officers.
Yeah.
You
You can
see
tell that he
them
would be
following
like
him.
a beacon. Yeah.
Yeah. Just like
He's
a good guy.
he's determined, if not,
a bit useless.
Oh, wait, the spotlights are used in this scene as well, where they sort of sweep across the bell tower every now and again.
Did you see the cathedral in other shots before it shows up at the end? Like,
I'm pretty sure
shots
it's
of
in the
city?
first establishing shot of Gotham, and there may be one or two. I mean, they're very strategic with how they filmed the streets in this, because bearing in mind it was pretty much one square with some alleyways going off of it. So the fact that they make it seem like a full city when everything was on the same square is very effective.
Yeah.
I know Batman Returns feels a lot more claustrophobic because that was just on a soundstage.
Batman Returns, I don't know if this is just my memory, but everything feels a lot more street level, and obviously so much of it is set in the sewers as well. It feels like underground, whereas there's big emphasis on the kind of metropolis style buildings that like tower up into the sky and things like that. And there's a lot of the shots like that which give you a sense of just how tall this city is.
Yeah. Oh man, that the gargoyle that he rests his hat on was on sale a couple of years ago, or a year ago. I didn't have the money for it.
Is your dream one day to like be rich enough that you can buy one of these?
I think if I could own anything, it would,
what's the one prop you'd want to own if money wasn't an issue?
To be the most excessive that I possibly could be, it would be probably the Batmobile. I would absolutely love to own that Batmobile. But saying that, I'd love to own the suit as well.
That would be incredible.
I think those are the two things that I would.
When we went to where did we go? The London.
We didn't go to the film museum, did we? We went to there was the BFI exhibit.
Yes.
There was a Batman exhibit in the O2 Arena, wasn't there, with the props?
No, I mean the one we went to afterwards. Was it on South Bank?
Yeah.
Were there any Batman? I can't remember. Were there any Batman props from that? There was the Batman Returns one because you had like Catwoman's claw and stuff like that.
Yeah, and a casting of her mask. The year before they had one of the Joker's costumes and a couple of other things.
His trousers are fabulous.
I love how physical this fight is between Batman and this guy, because he really beats the shit out of Batman. And this is a
big physical challenge.
And this is something. Does Batman role in any of the other movies? Because this is something that people hear when he does that role. It's incredibly athletic considering how restrictive the costume is. And
do you know? Was that Michael who did?
No, I doubt it. There were I think two other stuntmen who Dave Lear and another guy, Vic Armstrong. No, I can't remember who the other one was, but I doubt it was Michael for that one.
Oh yeah, so this is the one. Definitely does, doesn't he?
I mean, self-defense. Maybe we'll come up with another poll for that one.
He's got to stop the Joker, doesn't he?
Did they sleep together? Did Batman kill this guy?
He's got to save Vicky.
Comment below. There's an interesting. I have a full screen version of this film on DVD, which means it's 4:3 aspect ratio for old TVs. And on that DVD, it's been a common misconception that there's an alternate take of one shot coming up where Vicky enjoys taking the lint off of his jacket. But in reality, it's just a repeat of an earlier shot. So basically, the shot that you see where she's picking the lint out of her mouth, you know, when she's sort of like, she's kissing him and picking the lint out of her mouth, that shot is replaced with her just about to sort of go up and say Mr. Joker.
Okay.
It's a weird flub, but for years everyone thought, oh, it's an alternate take. That shot there, it's replaced with the front end of this shot before she starts talking. Weird flubber.
That would be very strange.
Yeah.
You're so powerful in purple.
I love purple. Prince sampled that one.
Purple rain.
Should we talk about the jackets? Is John Peters going to pay for those jackets at some stage?
Oh yes.
One of the famous stories about behind the scenes on Batman is that Jack Nicholson and John Peters were going to band together to get the crew loads of leather jackets as crew gifts, because on a lot of these sorts of films, people get crew gifts at the end. And they were going to get these jackets, and Warner Brothers were going to pay for a part of it. Jack Nicholson was going to pay for part of it. John Peters was, and it was like several $100,000 each, I think. And then right when the jackets were arriving, Warner Brothers pulled out, and consequently John Peters pulled out, leaving Jack to pay for all of them. And Kim Basinger was having an affair with John Peters at the time, because she was in an abusive relationship with her husband.
Oh shit.
And John Peters, as much as we say he's a psycho, was at least defensive of her at that stage. But he, as Jack Nicholson's way of encouraging John and Warner's to pay up, was to go to Kim Basinger and basically say to her, I think his fabled words were, tell the guy whose cock you're sucking he's paying for the fucking jackets.
Oh god. I can't approve of that either.
As a result, John Peters paid his end of the bargain.
If he'd have said that to John himself, that would be a great story. But as it is, it's just...
Interestingly, after John
Rude.
Peters and Kim Basinger didn't last, but then Kim Basinger was in a relationship with Prince after this.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they did. They actually collaborated for one of Batman's singles.
Does she sing?
She does a little bit. She did.
She sings in Cool World, doesn't she?
She does. I can't remember if that's her voice in Cool World, but
God.
she did do an album that I can't remember if it ever got released, but I've heard some of it, and some of it was okay. But it's not something she pursued. And I think their relationship ended in upset. I think they ran away together, and her family came chasing after her.
Shit.
Yeah, she hasn't had
crazy.
an easy life, Kim. Long before Alec, well, not that long.
She's
before
terrific
Alec.
in LA Confidential.
I still need to see that.
Yeah,
That's
really
her
good
big
performance.
comeback, because she was seen as like box office gold after this, and then she had a string of flops that sort of, and she bought a town, if you can believe that, and almost entered bankruptcy. She bought a town and almost became bankrupt as a consequence. So LA Confidential was her sort of big comeback.
Yeah, she's very good in it. Oh, I've never noticed that shot. Is that shot added into the Blu-ray of the hat falling off the
No,
gargoyle?
it's always been there.
Oh, I've never noticed it. I'm not a very observant viewer. I remember finding this sequence so exciting as a kid.
Mm.
Just like, you really feel the height
Yeah.
of them on the edge of the cathedral. And I love that this kind of like gradually happens, like that he's like slowly slipping from the ladder.
Yeah, yeah. There's Mac on the left. Yeah, it's a brilliant setting, and it really contrasts the rest of Gotham City in terms of that industrial element is completely lost. I suppose that goes back to like the two of them facing their tragedy together. Going down to that sort of raw, ancient sort of original core.
That's the thing. Like you said earlier about like Batman in the Batcave. Like you know he almost like their arc comes to an end when they have that conversation. He says, "I have to do this." So I would have a problem with this like last set piece being essentially like got to stop the Joker, but their conflict feels so personal, and like their central opposition to each other, like their binary opposites, is so powerful in of itself that this entire sequence in the cathedral works really well.
I can never figure out if that's the same miniature they used for them going up the alleyway earlier, and they like recolored Kim Basinger's little model. They just painted her dress white instead of blue.
This is a really brilliant shot when it's coming down on him.
It's always confused me as a kid. I didn't know what the like tape was in his pocket.
So creepy.
And this film also had such an impact on the casting of superhero films after this, because obviously Marlon Brando had been in Superman, but you know, after Jack Nicholson, it was kind of like a celebrity thing to be a comic book villain. You know, obviously they had Danny DeVito and Michelle Pfeiffer in the next one, and so on and so forth.
Some work better than others, don't they?
Yes,
Those two are fantastic in Batman Returns.
Yeah.
Danny DeVito got a Razzie nomination.
I'm amazed, yeah.
It's
I love
unbelievable.
that
It's such a great
performance,
performance.
yeah. And this is a great send-off for these two characters.
Knox and Vicky,
Yeah. That sort of mutual buy.
So just back to the Razzie thing. Did Tommy Lee Jones get a Razzie nomination?
I
for
don't
Batman
know if
Forever?
he did. If so,
Probably didn't.
if not, then that's depressing.
I'm sure we'll talk about him some other time.
The resemblance, this is really weird, but Mayor Borg on the left.
He's
looks
based on
he's,
the mayor of New York at the time.
What's his name? Mayor... Was it Ed Cook?
That rings a bell. I
May
think
have been.
Ed Cook.
Ed Coach? Ed
He was the mayor between 1979
Yeah.
and 90. Because I remember like
the visual resemblance is uncanny.
the actor who plays the mayor hasn't been in many
Yeah,
other films.
yeah.
So
And I love how sort of comic book-esque the bat signal looks in this. They weren't really going for much realism, and it works perfectly. Like that looks like a panel out of a comic book.
Exactly,
It's fantastic. There was another thing shot here where there were going to be kids dressed up as Batman running about.
Oh, that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm glad
Gross.
that's not in there.
That's the one thing I really hate about all the Spider-Man films. They go,
What?
even though, like, it kind
Spider-Man's
of works,
the hero of New
there's
York.
way
Yeah.
too much of kids running
Yeah.
about dressed as Spider-Man.
Thank you, Spidey.
There's none of that in Into the Spider-Verse.
No.
Which cleverly puts the point across
Yeah.
that you can be inspired by Spider-Man rather than have all the kids running around like,
Yeah.
it's Spider-Man.
I like that this whole shot is sort of mirrored in Batman Returns as well.
It
In a
is
very
the one
different
going up
light.
the
In this, it's kind of
towers.
triumphant. In Batman Returns, it's sort of melancholic and sort of sad. I'm sure we'll do a commentary of Batman Returns at some point.
both great films.
Yes, you can clearly
love the
see
way
this was
that
deserving of the.
Elfman's soundtrack soars.
Is that what you put on the poster?
Elfman's soundtrack soars.
Well, his thought his ears look too short there.
That's your final comment
Yeah.
on the film. The last
This
shot
is my
ends,
favourite
like,
film. Oh, his ears are too short in the very last shot.
maybe it's not my favourite film.
Yeah.
So having watched it on silent, is it still your favourite film?
I mean, it's less of a film without the sound. No.
How can it be your favourite film when his ears aren't tall enough in that final scene?
I think that takes off like at least half a star, if not a full star for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, just a brilliant film. I mean, when did you first watch this?
I literally can't remember the first time I watched it. I can't remember which one I watched first out of this, Batman Forever and Batman and Robin.
Yeah, I remember a lot of my friends had Batman Forever on
I think
VHS.
it was Batman Forever because I think that was the one I really liked because I
Yeah.
really liked Robin at
Yeah.
the time. That's just classic me. But then I think I must have been about 9 or 10 where I realised that this one was good and the
Yeah.
Joel Schumacher ones weren't.
I don't know why. I have very few sort of vivid memories of seeing films for the first time, but this is one film. It's funny that years later it would become my favourite because I do have quite a vivid memory of seeing the opening credits for the first time. Because after, it was quite funny when Batman Begins came out And I remember talking about it to my parents around a dinner table at my grandparents' house. And my dad was like, "Oh, there are other Batman films." And I was like, "There are more Batman films?" And they later got me the box set of all of the old ones.
Yes, the four
I was
ones.
so hyped. And so I watched them all with my parents. And the opening credits for this really blew me away. And I was already a fan of Danny Elfman. Like I hearing his stuff in Spider-Man and, funnily enough, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and seeing his name. I like that.
I haven't seen it.
I really like
I haven't
it.
seen it. I need to watch it.
But yeah, I would see his name in the opening credits and be like, yeah, actually, I like this music when I was like 11 or whenever I was. So hearing this absolutely blew me away.
I think to conclude, one of my favourite things is just that Tim Burton, Michael Keaton, and Jack Nicholson. This is cemented when you watch interviews with them. Just clearly three like really clever, creative people in their own right, and them all coming together.
Yeah.
And all really caring about these characters and really trying to hone in on what psychologically is interesting in it. Don't care about like whether they're too tall or like whether they physically fit it. It's all to do with making their actions make sense on a character level.
They have an eye for the detail, and they have a trust of the audience not talking down to them, if that makes sense. They will put that level of detail in and trust the audience to really glean that from it.
And I do think in the non-action scenes, Kim Basinger does a brilliant job of reacting, being that point of identification for the audience. She reacts in a way that I believe I would act if I were in her situation.
And Robert Wool, the most relatable character in the film.
Yeah, we talked about him.
Haven't we all been Knox at some point in our lives?
He's so lovely in interviews as well. He's
so
constantly
cheerful.
smiling.
He really
has a
loves the
fixed
film.
smile. Talks that fast in real life as well.
He really is. He is Knox in real life. He really is. I don't really know how to sum it up because
it's too beautiful.
I've
it's too amazing.
Spoken for 2 hours, and I feel like I probably have more to say. But this film just means if you've watched this, then you probably have a better. There's everything in there for you to sort of know more about me as a person. There's so much that sort of talks about my own personality and my perception of things and the reason why I got into filmmaking, in terms of that idea of putting images there for people to interpret. It's kind of like how a novel, you use language to stimulate someone's imagination, whichever direction that person's imagination will go into. That's not your place as an author. You're there to stimulate the imagination and then take the audience wherever they're going to go. And I think it's the same with film as a visual medium, is to put those images there so that people can interpret them however they please. And Batman's full of it. There's just so many weird icons in that film that you can take in any which direction, and that's why I love rewatching it, is because every time I get different readings from it.
I think you've summarized it about as like perfectly as anyone can, really. I would really recommend, because I do think it's become overshadowed after the Dark Knight trilogy. I think they're terrific films in their own right, but I really would recommend, if you're someone who's really interested in like the psychology of these comic book characters and really like I said, love watching actors playing around, making creative choices on set, I really would recommend watching this film again and just really paying attention to the character detail, because there's such rewards in there and there's such richness to the decisions they all make. It's a I think a very underrated film.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Now that the Dark Knight trilogy is out there, it doesn't get talked about a lot. I think it's kind of gotten put to one side, which is a shame, because a lot of people are missing out. I think this and Batman Returns certainly are superb films, and really show how distinctive a lot of these comic book films can be, and how introspective they can be. So yes. If the first time you've seen this film is with our commentary, go back now. Spend another 2 hours watching it without our commentary, because you owe it to yourself.
Right. Well, that was very, very enjoyable.
Thanks very much for listening.
Thank you very much indeed.
And take the best of care.
And get nuts.
Yeah, stay out of trouble. Don't go down any dark alleyways tonight in Gotham City. I don't know if I can say that.
Everything we both just said was rubbish.
I'd give our commentary a 6. 6 is good.
It's fine. Thank you.
Bye.